So tell me, who's a leader that inspires you and why?
So I can't answer that question without saying, obviously, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
Everyone says that, by the way. Everyone's like, the Prophet, I have to say it, of course, yeah.
And rightly so. And I'm not just saying that. In fact, to the extent where I remember, I thought, if I'm really truthful to that statement, then I would actually go and learn about the Prophet really, and really study his leadership, really study his words and his actions and how he dealt with certain situations. And it's mind-boggling when you look for something in the seerah, when you look for that particular quality, you realize, you think it was just all about leadership, and we missed the whole point. So it's that kind of thing. So there's just so many examples that are so inspiring from the life of the Prophet. I don't say that lightly. I'm not saying it's just a sort of answer and fill in the question. I do genuinely mean that. I think it's just a blessing that we have his examples preserved so well for us to learn from still today.
Is there someone in the modern world that inspires you for leadership?
I thought about it, and I'm thinking, there are people that inspire me in different places and different things. I wouldn't say there's sort of one individual that I'd say, okay, that's great, but I like to see, for example, you can learn something from business from certain people. You can learn something about humility from others. You can learn something about, influence from others. But overall, I wouldn't say there's one individual that I'd say, okay, in the modern era that I'd say, okay, that's, he's the go-to guy or person.
What is leadership for you? When you think of leadership, what does it mean to you?
Leadership for me is essentially about influence. Influencing yourself first of all, the people around you, to a noble and virtuous end, and that's the key point here. Because you can have good leadership, you can have bad leadership. You can have people who are good, effective leaders in the sense they can influence people, but it may not necessarily be to a good end. So I think it's really about that issue of influence, but combined really with a sense of righteous duty. And that's really how I see it. So it's all of us are leaders in all of our lives. As the hadith of the Prophet mentions that kullukum ra'in, that you are all leaders. And all of you are responsible for your flock, essentially. So we have that innate duty. The question is, do we realize and live up to it or not? But essentially, for me, it's about having that influence and then leading people to what is better.
Amazing. I love that. Having influence and leading people to what's better. I really like that. Jazakallah khair. So tell me something. What was your first experience of real leadership? Do you remember, when leadership started for you? Where was it? How was it? What happened? The first time you ever kind of, touched upon some sort of leadership?
Yeah, to be honest, I think generally I didn't wake up to the idea until very late. And there was an incident one time where I returned back from a business trip and I had someone who was working with me. Basically, things didn't go according to plan. I asked for something that didn't get it back the way I expected, and so on. And then I realized, what? I spent a lot of money on this trip, did a lot, and I didn't quite get the response I expected back from my team. So I thought, what? There's something about this whole experience that I need to learn from. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but basically, I really felt the fact that I'm responsible for this. I need to take responsibility. At the end of the day, I can't pass the buck to anybody else for the failure of anything that happens in this business. I need to take that on my own shoulders. And I remember sort of almost changing my identity at that point. I remember I became this very sort of authoritative person almost, overnight. It was like, what's going on? Are you going to take responsibility for this business or not? Are you really true to its aims? Do you really want it to succeed or not? And it was a very kind of, I was questioning myself in that form, and I remember it very vividly, and I really felt, okay, that's the first time where I felt it was a real wake-up call to say, you've really got to want this. Are you in it just for the ride, or are you in it to really take this somewhere? And it was a very poignant question asked at the time, and that was the first wake-up call I remember.